Well, g'day and welcome back to the shed. And this is part 5 of this Columbus Model 90 that I've been working on just about forever, I think. But I've just finished cleaning up the chassis as best I can. It's one of those things where I really don't know quite how far to go with it. I've done the best I can without potentially wrecking things. It's got some corrosion spots on it, a little bit of rust which I treated with rust converter, and I just did the best I could with it. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was, and I guess that's the main thing. Anyway, it's just about to go back into the cabinet, so I'll be working on the cabinet next. I haven't even started on that, but hopefully it'll be a simple job. The weather's getting a little bit warmer now, and I should be able to get some nice weather to spray it and rub it back and whatever I've got to do. There are a couple of other things to do on it first, so I'll just show you what I've done so far. As I said, it does have this spotty corrosion around it, and where the plating is corroded through. It's not actually rusty in most places. There was a very small spot of rust down the back here, which I've treated with rust converter. But overall it's come up all right. I've mounted these 2 lamp holders that I got from Steve, and I've ordered some 6-volt globes online. They haven't arrived yet, but I'm expecting them in the next couple of days. So when I do, I'll try that out. And what I think I'll probably have to do is put a resistor in the circuit to just knock the voltage down a little bit. I'm not sure how bright they're going to be, but the ones I bought were 8 watts, and that seems too much to me. So I think I will have to run them through a resistor. So the next thing to do is to fit the dial glass, and I've given it a very careful clean up, being careful not to damage the printing on the back, and it just sits in here. Now there is a small cork thing in here, and I made up something to match it on this side, and I think that it sits on top of those. It doesn't seem to actually fit down behind them well at all. I can't see that it would ever have sat behind them, so I think this is the way it goes, just on top like that, and these tabs bend across the top like so and hold it in place. So pretty simple compared to some others that I've had to deal with. Just try bending that in with pliers without touching the glass. I think that will be okay. I might have to mess with this clip a little bit, but I'm a bit reluctant to push it and shove it too much in case I break it off. Anyway, that won't interfere with anything like that. Now, the next thing is that this piece screws over the top, and I guess directs the light downwards onto the glass. If I interpret things correctly, when the globes are in this socket, the filament should just be over the edge of the glass and should edge light it. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. So I put this on, and it's just held on with a couple of screws. Now these didn't have spring washers or anything, so I'm just putting them back the way they came. I doubt that they would need them. They're not subject to any force to speak of. Now that seems to line up quite well with the scale, and I don't think it's scraping on the glass. It's a little bit off the end there. The tone markings seem to line up okay. So just when I was about to start on the cabinet, the globes have arrived, neatly packed in an egg carton. So I think I might just try these out before I go any further. Now these are supposedly 8-watt globes, so I'll just fit them in the lamp holders here. And that probably needs a bit of tightening up. It's not going to make good contact. Just bend it in a little bit. push it into the... Oh, that's a little bit awkward. That's hitting something. Yeah, okay. I might need to alter the position of this plate here. In fact, I'll take it off until I've got these sorted out, I think. And the other one, again, it's a little bit loose. I'll bend the contact in a little bit. And clip it on. Now these attach to this wire, which goes to a terminal strip underneath, which is not currently connected to anything, so nothing's going to happen yet. So I'm just tipping this up for a minute, and with the new transformer in it, it actually sits quite well on its side, so that's handy. Now this wire here is the dial lamp lead coming in, and it just goes to this terminal here, which is currently not connected. The closest 6.3 volt contact I think is probably going to be off pin 7 of the 6F6 here, and then that light blue wire goes off to the Magic Eye tube. So I'll probably pick it up from there. Now the schematic shows I thought it was 66, but I think it's a 0.66 ohm resistor here. But it also shows 3 dial lamps in series, which is not what I've got at all, and no way they're going to be in series. What I'm concerned about is overloading the heater winding on this transformer, because this is not the original transformer, and it probably wasn't designed for that much load on the heater circuit. So I've lifted the main wire from, or the 6.3 volt winding wire from the transformer, and I'm running it through my meter here and back into the filament winding circuit off the 6F6 valve, and I'm just going to put it on. This is on the 10 amp range AC volts. I'm going to put it on dim bulb for a start, turning it on. Went up to 3 momentarily. I've got 2.3, 2.2 amps. Dropping down a little bit, I guess, as the filaments heat up. I'll go off dim bulb under full power. And we've got 2.23, 2.1, I guess as the filaments warm up, it'll drop a little bit. It's steady now at 2.20, 2.2 amps, shall we say. So now I want to check what current the globes pull by themselves. So I'm going straight from the transformer, 6.3 volt winding, to the globes to ground. So there's nothing else except the globes running off the transformer. And we've got 1.48. It'll settle down in a minute as they warm up, I suppose. 1.46 amps. So I've got a 0.47 ohm resistor here at 5 watts, that should be plenty. Now putting the 0.47 ohm resistor in circuit, we've now got 1.36 amps. Well, that made very little difference to the brightness of the dial lights. In fact, I can't see any difference at all. So I thought I'd try another 0.47 ohm resistor in series. I've got a couple of them, so I've tacked 2 of them together here, and we'll see what that does. So I put the 2.47s in series. What would that be? 9.4 ohms, 0.94 I mean, as close as to an ohm as I can get. And putting that on, we're getting 1.3 amps. That does dim the globes down noticeably, but not too much. So I think if I'm going to run it through a resistor, that's probably about the ideal value. So I'll probably go out and buy a 1 ohm resistor. And I bought a 1 ohm resistor on the way home from work today, and I'm just going to sit it in here. I've attached a piece of pushback wire to it, so I should be able to just thread it up into the right spot. Now this is that 240 volt tap that I don't think I'm going to be needing, so this will just sit in here. I think about there should be alright. Just put that wire through there. Now this can sit just down there, and I'll cut it off about there. Now I'm going to have to clean up this terminal on the valve socket. It's got a bit messy, so I'll desolder that and put it all on again. And one more. Okay, so I finally got it on, soldered on there. Managed to clean that up enough, I think. And it's just sitting there, it's not touching anything, it's away from everything, so I don't think it'll be a problem. I don't expect it to get hot, but I will check it after it's been operating for a while just to see how it goes.
For them, the pies, only one change to going out.
Okay, so it's running, and looking at the voltage here, we've got 5.8 volts on the heater winding. It's been running for a couple of minutes only, really, and I'm wondering how much these globes are pulling down the voltage, so I'll see what happens if I disconnect them. 1, 2. Oh, you can't see that. That's 5.95 volts with the globes disconnected, and 5.94 with them connected. It drops down to 5.77. So those globes reduce the heater voltage by 0.77 of a volt. Sorry, 0.17 of a volt, which isn't a lot, but it's a little bit low overall anyway, and I'm beginning to wonder whether I shouldn't be using the 240 volt tap instead of the 260 on this transformer. That'd possibly give us a little bit more B plus as well, and see if the radio functions perhaps better. It functions very well as it is, and I do like to run things a little bit under rather than over, but I might try that 240 volt tap anyway. We typically have between 230 and 240 volts here, so that would probably be appropriate just looking at it that way. It is hard to know because firstly I don't have any information about what the B plus is supposed to be. I can look at typical operating conditions for the valves, but that doesn't tell me what it should be in this radio. The only real measure is basically what the heater voltage is, and it is definitely running a little under there. So getting onto the cabinet, I managed to gently prise the dial surround out, and I'll possibly stain that a slightly darker colour than the surrounding timber, but that's a bit further on. What I want to do now is just find out what sort of a finish we've got on this, and I'm going to just wipe it with a bit of methylated spirits, and if it dissolves the finish, then we've got shellac. I don't think this would be shellac. Would be nice if it was. It's easy to strip, but it does come up a lovely colour when you wipe it. I hope I can replicate that when we're done. I'll leave that a minute, but it doesn't look as if there's anything coming off on the cloth with methylated spirit. That doesn't feel sticky at all. No. I think I'm going to have to use paint stripper on this. I just thought I'd try it. So I guess we'll start with the top. I'll just pour a bit of paint stripper in here. I hope this plastic... oh yeah, it's coming out. Hope this plastic doesn't melt with it. We'll see. I'll start with the top, I guess. Nice thick coat. Okay, so that's had a few minutes. We'll just see how it comes off. I'll start with the flat bit because that's easy. That's coming off nicely. It's leaving a little bit behind, but not too much. May need another light coat to take all of that off. I'm not sure. It might just be better to sand it. A little bit not coming up here. I may not have covered it very well. And I'm just finishing off with a pot scourer pad. I've found that these take all the little bits off, and so long as you don't press hard into the wood, they don't do any harm at all. They just take the soft stuff off the surface. And I'll take all that dark stuff off the corner there without any harm to the wood underneath. One thing I notice, this top panel is a good deal darker than the surrounding edges, and I'll probably want to stain it to colour match that as far as I can, which might be a bit of a challenge. I'm taking the front panel very carefully, one piece at a time. So I've finished this piece along here, and I'm just about to start on these curved sections at the front. And you have to work fairly quickly with this stripper. It's quite good, but it's pretty savage. Even so, it's taking 2 coats generally to get it off clean. And I want to get as much off as I possibly can. I don't want to leave any varnish residue, or as little as possible, because I don't want to have to be sanding this too much. Sanding veneer is a perilous business. You can go through it so easily. Of course I'll be doing it by hand. I've seen people machine sand veneer and go through it horribly. So I'll just let that go for a minute, and we'll take this piece off. Just wiping it over with a damp cloth, and this gives me a fair idea of what it's going to look like if I just put straight varnish on it. These top pieces will need, I think, some stain in them. But now for the most critical bit, I'm going to do the front panel. And I would have liked to be able to remove this, but it wasn't going to come out without too much risk of damage, so I'm going to do it where it is, and I'm just going to have to be very careful around the edges. I'll try and not get it in the knob holes. I'll have to fish it out of there. Gee, the dogs are going off about something. Not my dogs, the neighbours. All the neighbours have got dogs except us. It's just that kind of neighbourhood. Now I want to do this banding along the bottom probably all in one go, so I'll put that along there. I'll pick up the rest of this later. Alright, let that go for a little while and I'll scrape it off. This stripper acts very fast, so it's ready to come off almost immediately. It's been less than a minute, or about a minute I suppose. Now I'll try and do this at an angle to the banding, so I don't want to lift any of it. There we go. Well, that's it stripped. Any remaining residue will come off with sandpaper. There's not much. And just looking at the colours here, I didn't notice this band of, I guess, walnut or some other veneer which extends across here and just across the bottom of the speaker. The rest of this is a fairly plain straight grain timber, and then of course we've got this banding across the bottom. Now if I give it a wipe, you can see the colour that's going to come out in that. So it was definitely worthwhile. Veneer up the sides here is looking pretty good. I still have to deal with this little split here. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that yet. I'm not going to stain the front panel at all, I don't think. I think just lacquer will bring out the colour in that very nicely. It's come up pretty well just from the stripper, surprisingly. I'm just sanding it over with 240 grit paper, which is very fine, but especially on top here I want the grain as fine as possible. There's a fairly large knot hole here. I'm surprised I left that there, but it must have originally been well covered with stain. It's quite visible now. There's a couple of little impact marks here which I'll probably leave. I don't think they'll come out, but I can't feel them, so they'll probably cover up all right. I'm just finishing off the front panel with just this little wooden block for sanding. It's good because it gets into all the corners nicely, and I'm just going along, just picking up all the little details. I've got the rest of the cabinet sanded reasonably well. We'll give it a once over with probably 600 grit. But after this I'll just get some stain onto the bits I need to stain and a coat of grain filler. That split in the veneer that I saw before, I can't find it now. It may become obvious later. It was only small. It's possible that when I put grain filler on this, that'll seal it up. I think I've got this side as good as I can get it. The other side was easy because it's very flat, but this one not so much because the backing timber behind it, I think I said before, has shrunk, and look, that feels pretty good here, but I think we're not going to get perfect reflections on this if I do a high gloss finish. I was thinking of a satin finish anyway. It might bring out the grain colour better. The other side is better. This side is nice and even. You can see a couple of little repairs that have been done here, and I presume that's factory work. They're very neatly done. So this was, well, I don't know whether this was done by Radiocorp in their own factory or whether they outsourced their cabinets. I'll have to ask Steve, he'd know about that. It didn't have a cabinet maker sticker on it anywhere, so I don't really know. So I've masked off the areas I don't want to stain, at least the first time around. And I just want to get some extra stain into these areas here. And if I can get the lid off this stain, there we go. Now this is oak, but it's not very oak-like. It's not as yellow as most oak stains. I'm going to try it, just see how the colour looks on this timber. If I don't like it, I can put something else over the top of it, because I'm happy enough to get these quite dark. So let's just see how that goes. Yeah, it's not bad at all. That's pretty much the colour I wanted, actually. Happy with that. Oh, that little nick there, I missed that before. I might have to do something about that. I'll let this dry off first anyway, and I'll give it a further coat of stain after that. Well, that's dried off now, and I've just gone back and filled a little nick in this knot hole here and a little dent here. I've given it a very light sand off, and I'm just going to give it a second coat. So just putting a bit more stain on it. I'll start around here and continue in one go. That bit I filled is darker, but can't be helped. That colour will be dark enough, but I'm also thinking I might stain the rest of it to help match the colour a little bit, because there's quite a difference between that and the front panel. Now, so just wiping it with a bit of water, the colour I get here is not very different to the top. And I think perhaps this will be a little darker. I don't want to wipe out the nice banding there, but I think that a light stain over the front as well probably wouldn't hurt. Okay, so I can probably take this masking tape off now and see if we've got any bleed. We've got a little bit there into the surrounding timber. Not a lot, it's actually pretty good. Well, there's no end to this thing. I was sitting here listening to Shortwave last night, the BBC World Service. I was trying to work out where it was being relayed from. And then I thought, well, I'll just give the IFs a tweak, and I pulled out my adjuster and gave the primary of this one a turn, and sparks flew out of it. And I turned it off immediately. So there's something very wrong in this IF can. So I suppose now I'm going to have to pull it apart and find out what's going on. These are not the same as most IF cans I've come across, in that you're not turning a slug inside a coil in this one. The adjustment is by way of capacitors, and they're just mounted on top of the coil here. And of course the primary will have plate voltage on it. And I think something has gone wrong with that capacitor or adjustable trimmer. Just looking at it, it doesn't look too hard to get the can off. There's a couple of screws there which hold the can itself on, and there's a nut on top of it, so I'll undo them, see what we're dealing with. Now let's see what's going on. So this is the side that was sparking. I'm going to have to pull it apart, but of course we'll lose all adjustment. What I'll do is I'll wind it in and count the number of turns until it stops. So 1 3/4 turns. So that way at least I'll be able to put it back somewhere near where it's meant to be. Alright, so let's undo it and see what's going on here. Okay, so there's the washer. There's a fibre washer. There will be a strip of mica in between these. I'm wondering if this plate could move so that the side of the screw contacts it and shorts. It was quite a full-on splat. It wasn't just little sparks, it was quite alarming when it happened. So lifting that up, I don't want to bend it too much, but it will be yeah, and we have a mica, very thin piece of mica underneath, which looks to be intact. I can't see anything wrong with it. I can't see any burn marks or holes or anything like that. Alright, so just zero that. That's about it. Now, is the screw connected to that? No, it is not. So it doesn't matter how much I wobble it around, it doesn't seem to connect to the lower plate. Alright, so the screw is isolated. The plate does look a bit corroded, but only on the top, and the mica insulator seems to be intact and in place. They're clear, so it's hard to see through them, but it looks as if there's 2 layers of mica. The only thing is this plate seems to be bent up this way a little bit, and that's possibly due to the contact here. Alright, so I'll just clean that off a little bit. Let's do a little bit of start you bastard. Alright, well I guess there's nothing for it but to put it back. I can't find anything wrong with it. Half, 1, half, 3/4 was about there. Alright, I'll just put some clips on the leads there and just see if anything shorts as I adjust it. Now that's about our reading unshorted, so I'll just adjust this in and out a bit, watching the meter, and see what happens. So far nothing. No shorts. I notice the washer moves around a little bit. I don't suppose it could have contacted the edge of the can. It doesn't seem likely. I don't know. I can't see anything wrong with it. I guess I'll put it back together and try it again. Well, I'll put it back in. I haven't screwed the can down yet, but I've been checking it. I can't find any shorts anywhere. So that's a mystery. So now the fun part, I guess, is getting these rotten screws back in. Well, the IF transformer seems to be alright. I just powered it up and it didn't spark or anything. It adjusts okay. So I was just setting up to do an IF alignment, and I noticed the dial string was slipping. So I thought, well, I'll just take it off, put a knot in it, and tighten it up a little bit. And I was just threading it back onto the drum and it broke, so now I've got to restring the dial. Now I don't want to take this front panel off, and I can't really anyway, because the front panel carries the front bushing for the tuning spindle, so I don't really want to be doing that. I'll have to just do it in situ. It's just a little bit awkward, that's all, but I guess, yeah, it has to be done. So it goes in from that direction. I better draw myself a diagram here, I suppose. Not that it's a complicated one, but there's always two different ways to do everything. Okay, so I've managed to string it again, more or less, and I'm just going to try and hook it back onto the drum. And let's see. This is where it broke last time, but it's not going to do that this time. There we go, it's back on the drum. Now I can get my tool unhooked from it. There we go. So that should run through okay. There's not a lot of stretch on that spring, just looking at it. There's enough, I think. It certainly runs through okay anyway. Alright, I probably need to finish off that knot onto the spring. So if I just hook this around here, over the top like that, and there we go. Now I'll just unhook that from there. There we go. Alright, so I'll just put another knot in that, I guess. It's alright as it is. And I'll put a drop of nail polish or something on that, or maybe super glue. I actually found a viable tube of super glue here, one that's not dried up, so I'll just put a drop of that on it. That'll hold it. Okay, so here we go, one more time. Just hook that around there. And it's on. Great things, dental tools. They do all sorts of stuff. Fiddly stuff. So that's running through nicely. Okay, so where were we? IF alignment. Just put the magic eye back in. And it just sits there like that. Okay, let's see what we can do with this alignment. I've got the signal generator set for 455 kilohertz, and it's feeding into the grid of the first RF valve there. And I've set the modulation at 440 hertz. Just because I like it, and there we go. So I'll just set a level on the meter for reference. Unfortunately, being a field coil speaker, I can't really do much about the noise. I can't really put a dummy load on it without desoldering the output transformer and disconnecting the speaker braids, which is too much trouble. So I'll turn the volume down on the video, but I'm just going to have to turn this up now to a level that I can deal with on the meter. So that will do for a start. Hopefully we'll come up on that level. So I'll start with the second IF and see how we're going there. Ooh, getting a bit out of that. Getting a lot out of that. That's its peak just about there. Okay. And I'll do the primary. I'll just set the amplitude down a little bit. There we go. I could set it down a bit more actually. I'll go 5 millivolts peak to peak. There we go. Okay, so now I'll do the secondary of the first IF. I'm getting a lot out of that too. Turn the volume down, and here we go, and this makes me nervous, this one, because this is the one that sparked before. I've got the screwdriver well insulated, so we should be okay. Oh, that made me jump. Okay, so coming up, that's about its peak there. Okay, well, we're done. So I thought I'd have a look at the RF alignment and see if we need to do anything. It's a bit early for shortwave yet, but looking at the medium wave alignment, so just turning it up a bit, tuning across from the low end, the first station we should get is at around 580, and that's the news station.
On the purchasing of this land, while these questions can be answered.
And there it is, and these divisions are 20, so that will be 580 there. So that's accurate so far. Now just coming along here, the next one we should is 720, which would be right there. Spot on, I can't play that for too long. Then we should get 810 just here.
Political donations, and I am prepared to accept that. And Nicole, what's the government hoping?
And these divisions being 20, that's right in the middle. So that's give or take half the width of the needle. That's spot on. Now we'll be looking at 1080. So that's 1100 there. So 1080 6IX, iHeart Radio, whatever it is, comes in. Should come in spot on there. And there it is, right on the button. You couldn't get it better than that, so I'm not going to touch that. I don't know how good the shortwave is at the moment. I'll come down here later on when we can get some reliable shortwave reception and see how that lines up.
Not engaging in regular straight train.
Okay, so it's about 8 o'clock at night. I thought I'd see how we go on shortwave, so put it down to shortwave, and I'll start at the beginning of the dial and just see what we get. That's on 41 metres. It's 31 metre band now.
On the planet, some consider it decaying of fruits, while others shout that it's pungent smell.
Okay, so we've got an English language one here.
The country consumes the world's largest amount, with Thailand now the leading country for imports. And now countries like Vietnam are stepping up efforts to compete in the market.
Now that little section from there to there is a 31 metre band, but we have a 31 metre band spread. So let's go down to the band spread and see if we can pick that station up there.
More than 490,000 tons of dairy into China, A staggering 1,100% increase from the previous year, valued at about 2.1.
So there it is.
And the business continues to thrive in the first half of this year.
Let's see what else we get along here.
Hàng rào vào năm rồi thì đang giữ chức hiệu Finland Mỹ Khả Tị nên hai người thường gặp mặt.
That's on the 25-metre band, and again you can just see that tiny little section there is a 25-metre band. We have a 25-metre band spread which expands it to the whole dial. That one should be recognisable, so go to 25 metres. Well, I think that's the same one. It's hard to tell. Okay, that's recognisable. Let's try and find that. Find out where it is.
Head of the immigration.
Well, that's it. Alright, so let's just keep going. And again, we're getting something on the 19-metre band there, so I'll see if we can identify that and pick it up on a band spread as well. Alright, let's see if we can identify that one on 19 metres here. So going to the 19-metre band spread. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so the band spreads line up with the with this, although that one on 25 metres was just off the edge of the band. In any case, I think that's close enough. I'm not going to mess with that again. The band spread sections come in where they're supposed to, give or take the width of a needle. So I'm going to leave it alone. Well, with the radio going really well now, I better get onto this cabinet, get it sanded and sprayed. Now, spraying it is going to be an issue because the weather's been terrible lately. It just hasn't stopped raining. It's stopped briefly now, but I'm going to have to get a little bit of sunny weather, hopefully a sunny day, to spray it. If not, I'll try doing something in the shed here, warming it up, and I can't do much about the humidity level, but I'll do what I can. Well, today is about as good a day for spraying as I'm going to get. The temperature's 21 degrees Celsius. Humidity is showing at about 75% relative humidity. But it's not going to get any better than this. I'm using Dulux Duramax Clear Gloss Coat. I'm hoping that that will do the trick. I think the stain has dried off well enough. Don't think I have this oil on my hands anyway. Hope not. Anyway, so I'll do the outside first, starting with the top, and probably lay it on its back to do the front. So here goes. Trying to follow the wet edge there without much success. Oh, we've got a run there already. Okay, I've wiped this side off with a slightly moistened rag with terps, and I'll just do it again more lightly this time. That's not looking too bad. I'll let that dry off for a little while and then sit it on its back and do the front panel. That seems to have gone reasonably well. I'll just tip it over. I still need to fit the dials around into there, but I've dealt with that separately. So, there's a bit of wind come up, unfortunately. Now that looks pretty good. I'll just go just over the sides here again. I'll leave that to dry off for a little while. I've been looking around for a piece of grill cloth that would do the job. The grill cloth in it was a light beige colour, was unfortunately damaged. I'm not sure if it was original or not anyway, but among all the bits and pieces of grill cloth I found this. Now this is not very similar to the original, but I think it would look good in the cabinet. The bronze brown colours will pick up the timber in the cabinet, and the black background, well, we've got a black dial there, and I think it would balance the front well to put that in it. Just having a look at it in the cabinet, and there we go. I think that would look good. I'm not sure whether to put it vertically or horizontally. It will fit both ways. I'm kind of going with vertical, I think. Now the original grill cloth was glued to the inside of the cabinet, and not terribly successfully. I can't think of any good reason why I shouldn't attach this to the speaker baffle and then screw the baffle in. So that's what I'm going to do. What I want to do is just put this in the radio. I'll remove the speaker and just mark where the opening is so that I can centre the pattern on the opening. So there we have the speaker baffle in the cabinet, and as you can see, it half the, or not a half, but a good part of the speaker is covered by the cabinet. It's not centred over the opening at all. I guess they've done this in an attempt to fit the biggest possible speaker into this cabinet. And a 10-inch speaker on a table radio really is unheard of, so they have gone overboard with this. So just marking the corners here. And only this little bit here is visible. I'll just make sure I can see that. So I've got that pretty much centered. We want the end of one pattern just there, and the end of the other one just there. So I'll staple it in this corner, pull it taut. So now I'll pull it tight, do one at this end, which isn't so critical because it's not seen. And I'll just do all the corners like that. Now I need to pull it across nice and tight. And I am going to have to wrap it around the corner here because this edge is visible right up to nearly the end of it. I'll have to burn some holes in that for the screws. Pulling that tight. And one in the middle. Just pushing this in. It's a reasonably tight fit, but I'll secure it with a few drops of glue around the edges, just to hold it in place on the inside, and that will be that. And gee, we're just about ready to put the chassis back in the cabinet, aren't we? I almost forgot I was going to lace up the speaker wires, so doing that now. I haven't done this sort of thing since I worked for Telecom years ago. Now that goes around behind, doesn't it? Yep. And I'd forgotten how, but a little while ago someone gave me this book, and it's actually got a section on how to lace up wiring, so I read that again and it kind of all came back. Even in Telecom they gave up on this, I suppose, in the late 60s, early 70s, when crossbar exchanges came in and the wiring was all in troughs above the racks. Anyway, I'll finish this off. I'll get the speaker back in the cabinet. Well, it's time to put this back in the cabinet. And here we go. I notice this cabinet has cutouts for two different size chassis too, which is interesting. They obviously used it for a number of things. Hopefully it will just push in. Yep, there we go. I haven't done much with the inside of the cabinet apart from giving it a good clean out and a wipe over with a damp cloth. I don't know if I should have done more, but I don't want to obliterate any of the writing and stuff on it, so I'll leave it alone. And the whole lot is held in with these two great big, I suppose they're big 1/4 inch screws. So what I want to do is try and get them in without, yes Rooster, without upsetting anything, so I'll be feeling my way here. But the hole for the screws should be there somewhere. Yep, I think I've found the thread. There we go. Okay, now that's finger tight, but it's done up. So now I can probably safely tip this up and put the other one in. Gee, it's got a bit of weight behind it. So now we can put the speaker in. And should be easy enough to screw it in there. It's a bit hard to see the screw holes, but we can do this. Okay, that's got that one in. Now I just need to line up a second hole. There we go. Just plug the speaker in. I guess that should go underneath the power cord. And don't know if I should do something to hold this in. Yeah, that should just sit there like that by itself, I think. That should be all right. So turn him around. I feel like these artists revealing their paintings on Instagram, turning them around very slowly. There we go, that doesn't look too bad. What do you think about the grill cloth? I hope I haven't made a mistake there, but I think it looks quite good. So I did a bit of research. Well, alright, I googled Steve Dunford's webpage, Vintage Radio Project New Zealand, and apparently this is the Endeavour cabinet, and the cabinets were made by AC Jensen Limited. It was the main company that seems to have produced cabinets for Radio Corp New Zealand. And this Endeavour model, apparently the standard Endeavour model, it says, retailed for £49 10 shillings in I think 1945. This was an expensive radio. That was a lot of money in those days, back in the days when a radio was actually a prized possession, a status symbol almost. At the end of World War II, New Zealand, like a lot of other countries, would have been celebrating the end of the war, and this was a pre-war model. It was designed more or less before the war. There was very few updates. I think the Model 75, if I recall the web page correctly, was its predecessor, and this is a revamped version of this. So it's essentially a pre-World War II design put back into production after the war. So I've been doing a bit of knob polishing, and they've come up beautifully, each one with its little emblem of Columbus's flagship, the Santa Maria. And so I'll put these on. First of all, I'll put one of these felts on each one. These are available from Carl's Capacitors, in case you're wondering, and a smaller one for the on-off switch. Okay, so this is the tuning dial, and it doesn't have a flat on the shaft, so I'll just do it up good and tight. And this one, the band, I think it's... No, this is the volume. This is just the on-off switch, and I've been wondering about which way up it goes. The illustrations I've seen seem to have it pointing downwards. And if you want the Santa Maria to be the right way up, it has to point downwards. But the switch was mounted with the flat on the knob down, and I put it back in the way I found it, and that's how it was mounted when I got the radio. And having this down here would bring it very close to the table. I think it looks better that way up, but I'm not 100% sure that that's correct.
But it's Chezz's day. He finishes with 9 goals.
Well, there we go. The footy's not going very well, but the radio is. Columbus Model 90 Endeavour, made in 1945, but actually released in 1942 before the Second World War, and production was put on hold during the war, as in many countries. So it's taken a while to get this all back together. It's hopefully looking and sounding much as it did in 1945, and it would have been a very nice thing to have back in those days, and not cheap either. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this series. It's gone on for quite a while, and it's taken me a while to get this video out, for which I apologise, but everything's been getting in the way, weather and other things. So I'll hopefully be back with another short video in a couple of weeks, and then I'll be going off on holiday for a couple of weeks. So I'll catch you then anyway. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.